1942. A secret facility hidden in the English countryside. British engineers stood around a workbench covered in lumps of coal. Except these were not lumps of coal. They were bombs. Weapons designed to look so perfectly ordinary that German soldiers would shovel them directly into locomotive fireboxes without a second thought. The moment that fake coal hit the flames, it would detonate, rupturing the pressurized boiler and transforming an entire train into twisted metal. No evidence, no warning, just another mysterious explosion that German investigators would chalk up to equipment failure. This was SOE explosive coal, and it would turn Germany's own fuel supply into a weapon against them. To grasp why British intelligence required fake explosive coal, you need to comprehend just how thoroughly Nazi Germany relied upon railways. By 1941, German military forces had seized control of the vast majority of Europe. Their dominion extended from France's Atlantic coastline all the way to Moscow's outskirts. And they transported virtually everything via rail lines: military personnel, armored vehicles, munitions, provisions, petroleum products. The Deutsche Reichsbahn, along with commandeered railway systems, functioned as the vital circulatory network sustaining the German military apparatus. Road transportation consumed scarce fuel that Germany simply couldn't afford to waste. Railway operations consumed coal, and coal deposits existed abundantly throughout their territory. This reliance established a critical weakness. Eliminate sufficient numbers of locomotives and you crippled German supply chains. However, locomotives presented formidable targets. Damaged track sections could be restored within 24 hours. Bridge structures remained under heavy guard, and traditional sabotage operations demanded that resistance operatives approach railway facilities, position explosives, and withdraw before German patrol units detected their presence. Numerous fighters perished in these attempts. The British military needed an alternative approach, something requiring no specialized technical knowledge from underground networks, something that could be deployed by anyone with access to a coal stockpile, something capable of destroying locomotives from within their own mechanisms. The answer emerged from SOE research installations concealed throughout Hertfordshire. Station 12, located at Aston House near Stevenage, functioned as the central manufacturing location. It had been transferred there from Bletchley Park during November 1940, following incidents where explosives testing disrupted the code breakers operating in adjacent spaces. Under Colonel Leslie Wood's command, Station 12 evolved into SOE's principal armaments production center. Throughout the conflict, this facility manufactured 12 million time pencil detonators and in excess of 38,000 limpet mines. Yet among its most brilliant creations were explosive devices camouflaged as common coal lumps. The engineering challenge proved deceptively intricate. The device required an appearance indistinguishable from authentic coal. It needed to withstand being tossed onto coal heaps, transferred with shovels into tenders, and manipulated by laborers without premature detonation. Simultaneously, it needed to explode dependably upon entering a firebox. British engineers accomplished this through a fusion of plastic explosive material and ingenious disguise techniques. Each device held roughly 1/4 pound of Noble 88 plastic explosive. This was a green plasticky substance carrying a faint almond scent, developed by Noble Chemicals Limited explicitly for sabotage missions. The explosive compound was combined with a number 27 detonator and a thermally activated fuse. When the camouflaged coal piece entered a locomotive firebox, extreme temperatures would activate the fuse, initiating the detonator and primary charge. 1/4 pound of plastic explosive by itself would inflict substantial damage. But the genuine devastation originated from the secondary consequence. The explosion would breach a steam boiler functioning at several hundred pounds per square inch of pressure. The complete locomotive would literally rip itself to pieces. Manufacturing techniques progressed through 3 separate stages. The initial approach involved boring into actual coal lumps using a 6-inch serrated tube, packing the hollow space with explosive material and detonator, then masking the opening with coal powder and adhesive. Laboratory assistant Arthur Christie performed these preliminary experiments at Station 12. He subsequently described inserting approximately 1/4 pound of plastic explosive into drilled coal pieces. But this technique proved structurally weak. Coal fragments would frequently crumble under drilling force. Station 15 at the thatched barn in Borehamwood transformed the production process. This installation contained SOE's camouflage division under Lieutenant Colonel Elder Wills, a peacetime film art director. He assembled over 300 film industry personnel, property fabricators, and artisans. Among these specialists was Wally Bull, who would subsequently contribute to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Bull created molded explosive coal utilizing dyed Herculite impregnated plaster covered with genuine coal particles. These clamshell configurations solved the brittleness issues of drilled coal. The ultimate improvement enclosed the explosive charge within metal casing with liquid plaster poured surrounding it, removing visible joining lines completely. Both explosive and incendiary variations were manufactured in numerous sizes, engineered to correspond with different coal classifications. Lignite displays brown coloration. Anthracite appears almost black. Bituminous coal exhibits varying degrees of shine. SOE produced versions matching each category, so devices would integrate flawlessly with regional fuel stockpiles throughout occupied European territories. Between 1941 and 1945, SOE manufactured approximately 3½ tons of explosive coal. At roughly 1/4 pound per device, this indicates somewhere between 6,000 and 14,000 separate weapons. Distribution depended upon RAF Special Duty Squadrons stationed at RAF Tempsford. Number 138 Squadron and Number 161 Squadron operated Halifax, Stirling, and Lysander aircraft, conducting supply deliveries across occupied Europe. By the conflict's conclusion, these squadrons had completed over 13,500 missions, transporting more than 10,000 tons of materials to resistance organizations. The French resistance obtained the greatest portion. SOE dispatched 470 agents to France between 1941 and 1944. Belgium, Norway, Poland, and Yugoslavia all obtained explosive coal shipments. Yugoslav partisans under Tito discovered the weapon especially advantageous given their persistent assaults on German railway supply routes. Narrative becomes puzzling. Despite 3½ tons manufactured and dispersed throughout occupied Europe, documented accounts of specific explosive coal operations remain extraordinarily limited. No identified operations, no precise dates and geographic locations, no verified locomotive destructions surface in declassified materials. This void demands clarification. The weapon was engineered to leave zero trace of sabotage. A successful deployment would manifest as an accidental boiler rupture, impossible to connect to hostile activity. German investigators examining wreckage would observe equipment malfunction, not sabotage. That plausible deniability constituted the fundamental objective. If explosive coal functioned as designed, successful deployments would become historically untraceable. Numerous SOE documents were intentionally eliminated following the war or remain restricted 80 years afterward. Railway sabotage throughout occupied Europe occurred so extensively that linking particular destruction to any specific technique proved impossible. The French resistance executed over 1,800 locomotive assaults between June 1943 and May 1944, employing every accessible method. Explosive coal represented one weapon among numerous options. What we can verify is the psychological effect. Once intelligence circulated that coal stockpiles might harbor concealed explosives, Germany confronted an impossible dilemma. Accept arbitrary catastrophic detonations in locomotives, vessels, and industrial facilities, or reassign thousands of military personnel away from combat assignments to protect coal reserves across occupied Europe. Neither alternative proved viable. Accepting the hazard meant unpredictable equipment casualties and frightened personnel. Protecting coal meant removing forces from an already stretched military. The Germans comprehended this danger because they engineered their own adaptation. In June 1942, Operation Pastorius deposited 8 German Abwehr saboteurs on American coastlines. They transported plastic explosives shaped to resemble coal alongside TNT and detonation devices. Their objectives included coal-burning power stations and railroad facilities. All 8 were apprehended before executing any operations. Germany never pursued comparable operations against the American mainland subsequently. The British double agent Eddie Chapman, co-designated Agent Zigzag, furnished direct proof of German capabilities. In March 1943, his Abwehr supervisors provided him 2 German-manufactured coal bombs to sabotage the merchant vessel City of Lancaster. Chapman immediately surrendered the devices to the ship's commanding officer, who transferred them to MI5 for examination. The incident disclosed that German coal bomb fabrication lagged behind British innovation. The Germans were still boring actual coal, while SOE had advanced to sophisticated molded configurations. American implementation demonstrates the concept's merit. The OSS Research and Development Division under Stanley Lovell produced an American version codenamed Black Joe. It utilized 6040 pentolite rather than Nobel 88. OSS expanded further with a specialized coal camouflage package containing pigments, application brushes, and implements, permitting operatives to coordinate explosive coal with regional varieties. Both organizations acknowledged the weapon's capacity, even if documented outcomes remain scarce. The comprehensive railway sabotage offensive accomplished devastating consequences through combined approaches. French resistance operations achieved 60% reduction in rail movement from March to June 1944. 486 assaults surrounding D-Day prevented German reinforcement of Normandy. In Yugoslavia, sustaining rail transportation demanded what one German general characterized as enormous problems and heavy railroad security, immobilizing at least half of the armed forces. Assignment to train security duty became so dangerous it was implemented as severe discipline. Whether explosive coal contributed substantially to these figures matters less than whether it contributed to the atmosphere of apprehension and resource pressure that defined German occupation. Contemporary records emphasize that destroying locomotives specifically caused disproportionate harm compared to severing track. Track could be restored in days. Locomotives demanded months of factory labor to substitute. The concept's influence persisted beyond 1945. CIA historical assessments note that, given the significance of coal to economies on both sides of the Iron Curtain, future historians may need to investigate how explosive coal figured in the Cold War subsequently. The weapon established what became standard doctrine for concealed explosives. Dead rodents packed with plastic explosive for factory furnaces. Explosive timber. Landmines camouflaged as animal waste. Contemporary improvised explosive devices hidden in commonplace objects trace their ancestry to Station 15's breakthroughs. Surviving specimens exist in the Imperial War Museum, including 16mm demonstration footage recorded by Cecil Clark at Station 17. The International Spy Museum in Washington and the Museum of World War II in Massachusetts also maintain examples. 1942, a clandestine facility in the English countryside. British engineers fashioned a weapon so refined that its victories remain historically undetectable. So psychologically crushing that Germany produced duplicates despite possessing no countermeasure against the original. 3½ tons of explosive coal fabricated. Thousands of devices allocated to resistance organizations across occupied Europe. An indeterminate quantity of locomotives annihilated in detonations that German investigators ascribed to equipment breakdown rather than sabotage. SOE explosive coal embodies unconventional combat at its most advanced. A weapon quantified not in verified eliminations, but in terror, in resources redirected, in the fundamental unpredictability introduced into every coal accumulation across Nazi-controlled territory. British engineers resolved a problem others had not even recognized. They converted Germany's reliance on coal into a critical flaw. And they accomplished it with 1/4 pound of plastic explosive concealed inside fabricated rocks that German soldiers transferred into their own fireboxes. That was British engineering brilliance. That was SOE operational excellence. And that was how counterfeit coal contributed to dismantling the Third Reich from within its own infrastructure.